Hey everybody, welcome back to the second episode of Two Guys vs. Cobrakai. Hooah! I'm Steve.
And I'm Jay.
And today we're going to discuss the second episode of Cobra Kai called Strike First! Strike Hard. Actually, just Strike First. So Jay, what were your thoughts on this episode?
Yeah, this was I felt like another good episode. I don't know if I liked it as much as episode one, but it sort of, I feel like this episode mainly introduced background more of Daniel and his family.
Right. And how,
sort of like,
in like the first episode, or this episode, he gets out of his car and there's this song, Ain't That a Kick in the Head, by like, I think Dean Martin or one of those singers. And he looks over and he sees this billboard that says Cobra, or that says, hold on, let me see what it says, like, kicking a head, so that he looks back and he says, and he sees that Cobra Kai is actually open. Like they bought apparently he must, I think at the end of episode 1, he bought the dojo. He bought a cleaning place or not a cleaning place, a piece of outlet mall for his dojo.
Yeah, I think he I think Johnny took some of I think it was money from his stepdad.
Yeah, and
to lease that dojo space.
Yeah, exactly. And he looks and he's like, holy shit, Cobra Kai is back, and he gives him a flashback about the tournament back in '84.
Right.
And so then the next thing is he's kind of trying to help Miguel learn to fight.
Right.
And I like how he's like, Miguel is like, sir, we don't really use, you can't really, violence anymore, because I guess, the thing about Miguel, it is a very generational thing, this series, because you also look at kind of how Johnny is sort of like strike hard, strike fast, and Miguel is like, don't you want to be better, or, friends with them kind of thing.
Right.
But, what were your thoughts on
like with Miguel and Johnny's?
Yeah, and this is kind of where I feel like their relationship is really starting to blossom.
Right. Yeah. So like, I guess at this point, I still think it's still a bit rocky. I think Miguel, like Johnny's finally agreed to teach Miguel karate. He's opened up a dojo, and I think I remember, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think Miguel objects to some of like sort of the crudes. I can't remember the specific crudes.
Well, yeah, he's
saying it's like like that's not very like you can't say that anymore. Like,
and then what I love,
overly sexist, and like Johnny's like, I don't care, and like smashes his inhaler, and like
he smashes his inhaler, and then the guy from like the leasing board comes by. Don't you remember? Or like he's like,
he's like fails an inspection. Makes Miguel do all this like repair work.
Well, yeah, and there's that line, and he's like going, so how do you want me to wash these windows? And he says, and he's like looking at a like a Playboy or something, and he goes, I don't really give a shit. I don't give a shit. And that's a nice
funny moment.
Kind of,
because like,
windshield, wipe on, wipe off,
like
kind of
wax
thing.
on, wax off. But
yeah.
Johnny's like definitely not that kind of teacher.
And that's the thing, and like, and like, and then you kind of see where, but I also like, how you see how Daniel's life is going really well. And this is where we kind of are introduced to we'll slowly introduced to the character Aisha. And Aisha is a good friend of like a family friend of the LaRussos. I think that
Yeah, I think their daughter Sam, right? Is that right?
Sam and Aisha like grew up together in the same thing, and I think there's something about, and it could be how high school movies portray the gang, like girls in high school. But there's always sort of like this mean girl element that they've just, Mean Girls got so successful that they've kind of added that into all these shows, kind of things.
Right. Yeah, I think in this episode you sort of see that Sam sort of falling into the mean girl crowd and sort of right, Steve.
Yeah. And I like but then you kind of see that that LaRusso also has a son, and well, we kind of talked about kind of how he was. You think he'll be sort of maybe important in later in season 4, but so because they're at this country club, and that's kind of where we kind of meet Aisha, and then you can see that Miguel is really, kind of, really kind of getting Cobra Kai, or getting the building that Cobra Kai will eventually his dojo into tip top perfect conditions.
Right. Yeah, I guess I don't know. I'm terrible at symbolism. So almost like sort of this is like Miguel being the foundation of
Cobra Kai, the new Cobra Kai.
Right, because like him doing all this work,
and then what happens is the girls start to do have it. So they're throwing down so I guess they go out to this country club for dinner, for brunch or lunch or breakfast or somewhere, and on their way back, apparently Sam and all her friends end up throwing a pool party, yeah, that is going on at her house. At a pool party. They leave sort of. They throw a pool party, and they have to run everybody off, and and Sam gets sort of told by Daniel that these girls aren't your friends, kind of thing, and there's a bunch of high school relationship drama.
Right.
But
I guess the other thing you're sort of somewhat brought back in is I think you start to see like where Sam and the bullies that beat up Miguel in episode 1 are part of that. The mean.
Yeah, exactly, and sort of they become sort of like and then you're kind of right, like there's like a lot of and then and you kind of see how she's kind of dealing with that relation, with her relationship with her father.
Right.
It's kind of getting rocks, and because then they go into a flashback where you can see that he's kind of taught Miguel. So then we go into a flashback where we see Daniel training Sam to kind of be, all that she can be, kind of thing, and how he's kind of taught her the lessons that Mr. Miyagi taught him, and and I'm guessing through in this universe, Pat Molina died in like 2004. So I think in this universe there was some mention that they knew Mr. Miyagi.
I think like they were just later on hints like Mr. Miyagi was part of Daniel's life for a while.
When he got older, yeah. Because I think in the original Karate Kid, Daniel's dad was either dead or left them. I think he died.
I can't remember. I know he definitely wasn't part of the picture.
He wasn't. Yeah, he wasn't part of the picture either way. So, kind of Daniel becomes, so. Dang it. I'm kind of. Well, okay. So, but that was kind of the thing is that, and I feel like their relationship is getting strained. But it's also she's a teenager. He's in his 40s.
He's her dad.
There is that generation, we can kind of see that generational gap from the 80s to 2020 or 2019.
Right.
And he grew up in the 80s.
So then we get, and then we're at the cafeteria where we get to meet his friends, and
right.
Oh my gosh, the kid that plays
the one with the list.
He goes by Hawk in later episodes.
And he's sort of an outcast kind of guy.
It was Jacob Bernard. And Jacob Bernard was in Ready Player One. And he's been in The Lion Guard for Disney Channel. But he's a baby. He was born in 2000. Gosh, that makes me feel old.
Yeah, we're old, Steve.
I know. We're old. We should change it to two old men talking about Cobra Kai. Then there's the other guy. There's Hawk and there's Dimitri, and Dimitri is
very scared.
And Hawk, or I think his name is Eli. I think it's
Eli, right?
But I think the first couple episodes he goes as Eli, and he's got a lisp. And
I think he's got a scar on his lip, or what's that? Is it a cleft palate?
Cleft palate, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, they had to do surgery to connect it.
So, he's got a cleft palate, and so he kind of sits with these, and that's his sort of friend group, and he sort of, they kind of don't really go up to want to talk to these girls. They're still, I feel like as the series goes on, these characters build their confidence up.
Right.
A lot, so really in these first couple episodes, we're really trying to understand who these characters are first.
Right.
With any series.
These first couple episodes.
These first couple of characters.
Yeah, so I think sort of picks, the.
Yeah.
I guess this episode's very clicky where you have the sort of the social rejects table,
right,
and then the mean popular kids.
Yeah. And I also kind of feel like the other thing too is that they have then there's sort of the Aisha's character who Aisha's got to deal with throughout with bullying, and I think a lot of when you look at Aisha, these characters kind of have this archetype, and that they're really throughout this series builds up more and more, I think,
and crumbles in a way.
And then I think he goes up to so then Miguel ends up trying to take his shot with trying to ask out Sam, and then there's that Chinese guy or the guy with the hat who basically beat him up in front at the 7-Eleven.
Right. I think his name's Kyler.
Kyler, yeah, which is weird, but yes, Kyler, and he's played by Joe Theo, and Joe Seo was in Freedom Riders and Gridiron Gang. And he was in the movie Vacation. So he's done some pretty good different kinds of films. But so I mean, the acting's pretty. What do you think of the acting in this show? You think it's pretty good?
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah, and it plays high school. It plays it not too dramatic, but it plays it decently real.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's quite a bit of drama, but yeah, it's got some. They don't dwell on it too long. I think it's always entertaining because it
kind of like how we talked about in the first episode, kind of how like we grew up on Power Rangers.
Right.
To me, that was kind of the same thing with this. It's sort of like, whereas like, these here's what they are like at school, but here's what they are when they get to become cobrakais.
And stand up for themselves.
So he kind of strikes out with Sam, and then he goes over to, I think the next day he goes to Johnny, and Johnny tells him to make a fist and punch a guy out. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think what he's like focuses his anger about Kyler, I guess bullies or something. I can't remember exactly.
And then while he's fighting him, he gets a call from his school, from his son's school, and now we're introduced to his Robbie. Right. And Robbie is played by a guy named Tanner Buckner of Buchanan, and he's been in Girl Meets World, so he's kind of with Disney. He was in Girl Meets World and in Fuller House, and I think he's doing a redux with She's All That. And on my other podcast that I worked on, it was a 10 Things I Hate About You, She's All That podcast. And in that one, Rachel Lee Cook is going to be the mom. And Rachel Lee Cook played in the original one. So it's going to be kind of an interesting kind of... I mean, it's a different character, but it's going to be a reimagining kind of thing, But that's I kind of put that in to the Cobra Kai kind of... Anyway. I like to kind of play a little bit of that sort of thing, More but yeah, and so, so he gets a call, and then he gets a call, so that kind of shows us who Robbie is. And Robbie's sort of a mysterious character in this second episode. Right. And then she and what's his daughter's name again? Sam. Okay, yeah, Sam and the other guy that Kyler. Yeah, Sam and Kyler go. She has them for dinner one night. Right. And they're eating sushi, and she says, he loves sushi and he loves raw fish, and I don't think he actually does at all.
No, yeah, I think there's the whole thing where Daniel, since he's like, I think, had his relationship with Mr. Miyagi, he's like been to Japan, picked up some like sushi culinary skills.
Yeah, and
like takes the time to make this like fancy sushi dinner, and then kind of was like, oh yeah, I don't like
sushi, and it really kind of like goes, and I feel two things for Tyler. One, I think he probably could have done it a little bit better. Of like, I'm sorry, sir, I'm not a big fan, but like he talks about how he's not a big fan and how
politely,
but you can tell, and I can kind of tell that when you watch it through, I think he really stands in now that we've kind of watched the series and now we're going through it as a with a podcast, we kind of can tell that his character is sort of not going to be right for Sam, even in this moment.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he's very much, a lot of these characters are sort of, have good and bad qualities, and he's very much sort of, I don't know if he has many redeeming qualities, sort of just
exactly.
Popular bully sort of jockey kid.
Yeah, and I'm watching it right now just to kind of get sort of, and he kind of says he doesn't really like sushi. I mean, and he talks about Mr. Miyagi to him,
Really inspiring him to get
but
into
that's sort of
Japanese culture.
and that kind of like relationship, and then LaRue or
I think later on in this scene, Daniel notices that Kyler has like a black eye.
Black eye.
It's like his knuckles are bloody from like being in a fight. Right?
Yeah, and he's like, "Where'd you get that hit?" And he kind of ties it down that he got in a fight with LaRusso or with Miguel, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, I think he tells Daniel though that some guy at a strip mall jumped him with karate.
Right. Yeah. So he
leaves out the part where he's bullying Miguel.
Yeah. That's right. He doesn't bully Miguel, or he plays the victim. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
And then he goes over to and then that ticks him and tells him to go to back to the Cobra Kai, and he kind of realizes that Johnny started Cobra Kai.
Right. Yeah, I think this is sort of like the culmination of the episode. I think it is something the series does a good job. It sort of always leaves in like a high tension moment.
Yeah. Well, and I think but here's the thing with Netflix's series versus like other series. I feel like Netflix series, it's got this binge mode, but I feel like Cobra Kai has that binge mode, but it also feels like tune in next season, next Wednesday. I kind of want to see like next Wednesday they'll have the episode 2, episode 3 they'll have to do this kind of thing.
Right, and then I guess now that I'm thinking about it, I think this might be an episode with. I don't know if there's an actual karate fight in this episode, which I feel like is sort of rare.
No, this one doesn't really, because I'm kind of going through this episode. There's sort of a kind of a really like I said, your first 3 episodes really are your first episode, because and like this third one or this second one doesn't really have any fighting at all.
Yeah. It's a lot more character.
It's a lot more color. It's sort of. I mean, really, if you look at it, it's him kind of getting the dojo. It's because you got to look at it this way. You've got Johnny's character arc, Miguel's character arc, Daniel's character arc, his daughter's or Sam's character arc. Then you've got sort of, like her,
at the end
kind
of the
feminist,
episode, you got the rivalry.
You've got the characters in school,
Daniel
like Dimitri, that are just kind of there for right now.
Daniel and
not until we get to 3,
Johnny,
4, 5, and 6.
Johnny's like, why did you bring back Cobra Kai?
Right.
And and then there's kind of he gets a call like from, and then we get to see then we've kind of introduced Robbie.
Right.
And Robbie is sort of our, so I mean, Robbie is sort of, we find out that he's the son of,
Johnny, right?
Johnny. So, you can kind of tell that there is a that sort of thing. So really, episode 1 kind of says, here's who the characters are, or here's what the story is about. Episode 2 says, it's almost like a piece of bread. Episode 1 says, here's what the story is about. Episode 2 slices it up a little bit to kind of give you sort of like, okay, now we're going to give you a little bit more detail. There's the lettuce. Here's some tomato. It is like making a sandwich analogy,
Right.
So what would you say is, what do you like about, after watching episode 2, or, talking about episode 2, what would you give it a grade on like a scale from 1 to 10, or 1 to, where you...
I'd say this one, I guess for me, I didn't feel like it was as good as episode 1, but it was still good.
And
I think I gave episode 1 like an 8 or 9. I'd say this one's like 7 or 8 for me.
8. Yeah, I would say that too, but I feel like with episode 1 has to grab you to really get you interested into it. And, now you're trying to hold on to figure out, okay, because, if I'm not interested in episode, if I give up, but it's pedaling. It's trying to get on its bike kind of thing. I think, with a movie, you've got 2 hours to sort of, really give you enough info on it. But with with this show, it sort of goes into I think with this, it gives, the characters kind of have to build up a little bit more, for us to care about them.
Right. I agree with you, Steve.
So anyway, this has been Two Guys vs. Cobra Kai. Hiya! Join us for episode 3 next week. And have a good day.
All right, we'll see y'all.
See ya. Bye.